My mother has not spoken to me in 2 weeks after I told her she was an unwanted guest at my wife's family cabin during what was supposed to be our private vacation. One sentence defending my wife's right to relax has destroyed my relationship with my parents and turned my entire extended family against me forever. The text messages started within hours of my parents leaving the cabin. My mother told my siblings that I had humiliated her in front of my wife by calling her unwanted and uninvited. My father said I had shown disrespect and ingratitude toward the woman who raised me. My aunts and uncles began calling to express their disappointment in my behavior. By the end of the week, I had received angry messages from over a dozen family members who believed that I had cruelly attacked my mother for trying to help with vacation meal preparation. They accused me of prioritizing my wife over my family and of allowing marriage to corrupt my values and loyalty. The story they heard was that my mother had generously offered to cook meals for our vacation, only to be told by her son that she was not welcome in the cabin. They were told that I had embarrassed her publicly and made her feel rejected and unwanted during what should have been a pleasant family visit. But that version of events ignored the crucial context that my mother had invited herself to our private vacation without permission and had spent the entire day trying to force my exhausted wife to entertain and serve her instead of resting and reading as planned. My wife had been looking forward to this cabin retreat for months as an opportunity to decompress from work stress and enjoy quiet time with books and relaxation. She had explicitly planned no social activities or meal preparation responsibilities. The vacation was designed to be restful and restorative rather than social and entertaining. When my father mentioned that he might stop by for a day of fishing, we welcomed the idea because it would not require my wife to alter her relaxation plans. He could fish while she read, and they could coexist peacefully without demanding entertainment or social interaction from each other. But somehow my mother inserted herself into these plans without asking for permission or considering whether her presence would disrupt my wife's carefully planned restoration time. She arrived expecting to be entertained and served, then became angry when my wife declined to abandon her vacation plans to accommodate an uninvited guest. The confrontation that destroyed my family relationships happened when my mother complained that my wife had been rude and ungracious by refusing to cook dinner for everyone after my mother had spent the day preparing elaborate meals that nobody had requested or needed. I told my mother that technically she had not been invited to our vacation and that my wife had no obligation to entertain her at my wife's family cabin while my wife was trying to rest and recover from work stress. But my family interpreted my defense of my wife's vacation plans as an attack on my mother's character and value as a family member. They could not understand that uninvited guests do not have the right to demand entertainment and service from people who are trying to relax. Let me take you back to show you how my mother's inability to respect boundaries turned a peaceful vacation into a family civil war that cost me relationships I had valued my entire life. The vacation that destroyed my family relationships was supposed to be a simple and restorative retreat at my wife's grandparents' cabin, located in a peaceful rural area perfect for reading, fishing, and quiet relaxation, away from work stress and urban noise. My wife Sarah had been dealing with an unusually demanding period at her job, involving long hours, difficult clients, and high-pressure deadlines that had left her feeling emotionally and physically drained. She had been looking forward to this cabin vacation for several months as an opportunity to disconnect from work responsibilities and recharge her energy. Sarah's vacation plans were deliberately simple and undemanding. She wanted to spend her days reading books she had been saving, taking walks around the property, and enjoying the quiet, natural environment without any social obligations or entertainment responsibility. She had packed several novels, prepared simple snacks that would not require cooking, and made it clear that she had no intention of preparing elaborate meals or hosting social activities during our time away. The goal was rest and restoration rather than entertainment and socializing. I supported these plans completely because I could see how much Sarah needed genuine downtime without the pressure of managing other people's needs or expectation. I brought my fishing equipment and looked forward to spending quiet time outdoors while Sarah enjoyed her books and relaxation. When my father mentioned that he might visit for a day of fishing, we both welcomed the idea because it aligned perfectly with our low-key vacation plans. He could pursue his own interests while we pursued ours, without requiring anyone to alter their preferred activities or provide entertainment for others. The problems began when my mother decided to invite herself to our vacation without asking for permission or considering whether her presence would be welcome and appropriate for the type of retreat Sarah had planned. My father had mentioned his fishing plans to my mother during a casual conversation about our vacation. Instead of understanding that his visit was specifically designed to be low maintenance and undemanding, my mother interpreted it as an opportunity for her to join what she assumed would be a social family gathering. She made her own plans to accompany my father to the cabin, bringing groceries and supplies for elaborate meal preparation that nobody had requested or needed. She apparently assumed that Sarah would appreciate help with cooking, and that we would all enjoy spending time together as an extended family. But my mother's assumptions were completely wrong. Sarah had not planned to do any significant cooking during our vacation, and she certainly had not intended to entertain guests or manage social interactions that would prevent her from getting the rest and restoration she desperately needed. When my parents arrived at the cabin, I was shocked to see my mother because she had not mentioned her intention to join my father's fishing visit. She had simply decided to come along without checking whether her presence would be welcome or appropriate for our vacation plans. My mother seemed to expect that Sarah would be excited about her surprise visit and grateful for her offer to help with meal preparation and household management during our stay. She had brought enough groceries to prepare elaborate lunches and dinners for everyone throughout the day. But Sarah was not prepared to entertain unexpected guests or participate in social activities that would prevent her from pursuing the quiet relaxation she had been anticipating for months. She politely explained that she planned to spend the day reading and that my mother was welcome to cook if she chose to, but that Sarah would not be participating in meal preparation or social entertaining. My mother seemed confused and hurt by Sarah's response. She had apparently expected that her surprise visit would be received with enthusiasm, and that Sarah would appreciate her assistance with vacation meal planning and preparation. Instead, Sarah retreated to her preferred quiet activities, while my father and I went fishing as originally planned. My mother was left to manage the meal preparation she had initiated without the social interaction and appreciation she had been expecting from Sarah. Throughout the day, my mother made several attempts to engage Sarah in conversation and collaborative activities. She tried to involve Sarah in grocery shopping decisions, meal planning discussions, and kitchen preparation tasks that would have required Sarah to abandon her books and relaxation time. But Sarah consistently declined these invitations because participating would have defeated the entire purpose of her vacation. She had come to the cabin specifically to avoid social obligations and work-related stress, not to take on new responsibilities for entertaining and serving unexpected guests. By the time my father and I returned from fishing in the late evening, the tension between my mother and Sarah had become obvious and uncomfortable. My mother was clearly frustrated by Sarah's lack of participation in social activities, while Sarah was frustrated by the constant interruptions to her planned relaxation time. During dinner, my mother began complaining about having to prepare all the meals by herself, without assistance or appreciation from other family members. She made pointed comments about how much work she had done and how little help she had received from Sarah throughout the day. Sarah responded by taking her dinner plate to eat alone in the bedroom, which made it obvious that she was uncomfortable with the tension and criticism that my mother was expressing during what should have been a peaceful meal. My mother interpreted Sarah's departure as rudeness and further evidence that she was ungrateful for the effort and assistance that my mother had provided throughout the day. She began expressing her frustration to me about Sarah's behavior and attitude toward family visits and social interaction. I found myself in an impossible position where I needed to choose between supporting my mother's expectations for entertainment and appreciation, or defending my wife's right to pursue the relaxation vacation she had planned and needed. My mother clearly expected me to agree with her criticism of Sarah's behavior and to encourage Sarah to be more social and appreciative of my mother's surprise visit and meal preparation efforts. But I understood that Sarah's response was completely reasonable, given that she had not invited my mother to visit and had not requested assistance with meal preparation or social entertainment during our vacation time. The situation was complicated by the fact that my mother had good intentions and genuinely believed that she was being helpful and generous by providing elaborate meals and attempting to create social family time during our cabin stay. However, her good intentions did not change the fact that she had invited herself to our vacation without permission and was now demanding entertainment and appreciation from someone who had come to the cabin specifically to avoid social obligations and responsibility. I realized that I needed to address the situation directly, rather than allowing the tension and misunderstanding to continue creating conflict between my mother and my wife during what was supposed to be a restorative vacation experience. The confrontation that destroyed my family relationships began the next morning when my mother cornered me in the kitchen, while Sarah was reading on the cabin porch, trying to salvage some quiet time from what had become a socially demanding vacation experience. My mother was clearly upset about the previous evening's dinner tension and Sarah's decision to eat alone, rather than participating in family conversation and appreciation for the elaborate meal preparation that my mother had undertaken without being asked. She began the conversation by expressing her hurt feelings about Sarah's behavior and attitude toward her surprise visit. She said that she had never experienced such rudeness and ingratitude from a family member, especially someone who should have been grateful for assistance with vacation meal planning and preparation. My mother explained that she had brought groceries and spent hours preparing elaborate lunches and dinners, specifically to help Sarah enjoy a more comfortable and well-fed vacation experience. She could not understand why Sarah had responded to these generous efforts with what my mother perceived as coldness and rejection. She pointed out that she had never been treated so poorly by any of my previous girlfriends, all of whom had appreciated her involvement in family activities, and had expressed gratitude for her contributions to social gatherings and meal preparation. My mother said that Sarah's behavior revealed fundamental problems with her character and her understanding of family relationships. She suggested that Sarah was selfish and ungrateful, and that these personality flaws would create ongoing problems in our marriage if they were not addressed immediately. She asked me to speak with Sarah about being more gracious and appreciative toward family members who made efforts to help and support our relationship. She wanted me to explain that family visits were opportunities for bonding and gratitude, rather than times for antisocial behavior and rejection of generous assistance. But I could see that my mother had completely misunderstood the situation and Sarah's needs. Sarah had not been rude or ungrateful. She had been trying to maintain the quiet, restorative vacation experience that she had planned and desperately needed after months of work stress. I tried to explain to my mother that Sarah had come to the cabin specifically to rest and read, and that she had not expected to entertain guests or participate in social activities during her vacation time. I pointed out that my mother's surprise visit had disrupted Sarah's carefully planned retreat. My mother responded by saying that family should always be welcome and appreciated, regardless of timing or advance notice. She argued that Sarah's inability to adapt her plans to accommodate family visits revealed selfishness and poor priorities about relationships. She said that healthy marriages required wives to be flexible and gracious about family involvement, and that Sarah's resistance to entertaining unexpected guests indicated fundamental problems with her commitment to family integration and acceptance. But I knew that my mother's expectations were unreasonable and unfair. Sarah had not invited her to visit, had not requested assistance with meal preparation, and had every right to pursue the relaxation activities she had planned for her vacation time. I told my mother that Sarah had been looking forward to quiet time at the cabin for months, and that she should not be expected to abandon her restoration plans to entertain unexpected guests, even family members with good intentions. My mother became defensive and hurt when I suggested that her visit had been disruptive rather than helpful. She said that she had only wanted to contribute to our vacation experience and create opportunities for family bonding and appreciation. She pointed out that she had spent her own time and money to provide elaborate meals and assistance that most people would have appreciated and enjoyed. She could not understand why Sarah would reject such generous efforts and choose antisocial behavior instead. I tried to explain that Sarah's need for quiet restoration time was not antisocial behavior, but rather necessary self-care after a particularly stressful period at work. I said that different people had different ways of recharging their energy, and that Sarah's approach involved solitude and reading rather than social interaction. But my mother interpreted this explanation as criticism of her own social personality and her desire to create family bonding experiences through shared meals and activities. She said that I was taking Sarah's side against my own family and prioritizing my wife's antisocial preferences over family relationships. The conversation reached a breaking point when my mother said that she felt unwelcome and unappreciated at the cabin, and that Sarah's behavior had made it clear that family visits were not valued or desired. I realized that I needed to be direct and honest about the situation, rather than continuing to attempt diplomatic explanations that my mother was not willing to hear or understand. I told my mother that technically she had not been invited to our vacation, and that Sarah had no obligation to entertain her at Sarah's family cabin while Sarah was trying to rest and recover from work stress. I pointed out that my father had been invited for a fishing day, but that my mother had invited herself without asking whether her presence would be welcome or appropriate for the type of vacation we had planned. I explained that Sarah had every right to pursue her planned relaxation activities without being expected to accommodate unexpected guests or provide entertainment and appreciation for assistance that she had not requested. My mother stared at me with an expression of complete shock and hurt. She could not believe that I was characterizing her surprise visit as unwelcome and her generous meal preparation efforts as inappropriate intrusions on Sarah's vacation plans. She said that I was being cruel and ungrateful by describing her visit in such negative terms. She pointed out that she had only wanted to help and spend time with family members, and that my response proved that marriage had corrupted my values and loyalty. But I was tired of watching my wife's reasonable need for restoration time being characterized as rudeness and ingratitude. I was frustrated by my mother's inability to understand that good intentions do not automatically make someone's presence welcome or their assistance appreciated. I told my mother that maybe she should try not being an unwanted guest in the future. I said that asking permission before visiting and respecting other people's vacation plans would prevent the kind of tension and conflict that had occurred during this trip. My mother became furious and accused me of humiliating her and attacking her character for trying to be helpful and generous. She said that my response proved that I no longer valued family relationships and that Sarah had successfully corrupted my understanding of loyalty and gratitude. She and my father left the cabin immediately after this conversation, with my mother making it clear that she felt deeply hurt and rejected by my defense of Sarah's vacation plans over her efforts to create family bonding experiences. But I felt relieved that I had finally been direct about the situation, rather than allowing my mother's unrealistic expectations to continue creating stress and tension for Sarah during her much-needed restoration time. I thought that my mother would eventually understand my perspective once she had time to consider the situation more objectively. I assumed that she would recognize that her surprise visit had been disruptive, and that my defense of Sarah's vacation plans had been reasonable and appropriate. Instead, what happened was that my mother immediately began contacting other family members to share her version of events, which painted me as an ungrateful son who had cruelly attacked his mother for trying to help with vacation meals and family bonding. Within hours, I was receiving text messages and phone calls from siblings, aunts, uncles, and cousins who had been told that I had humiliated my mother by calling her unwanted and unwelcome during a generous family visit. The story they heard emphasized my mother's good intentions and generous efforts while completely ignoring the context of Sarah's planned restoration vacation and my mother's failure to ask permission before inviting herself to join our retreat. My family members accused me of being disrespectful and cruel toward the woman who had raised me and sacrificed for my well-being throughout my childhood. They said that my behavior proved that marriage had corrupted my values and priorities. They could not understand that defending my wife's right to pursue her planned vacation activities was not the same as attacking my mother's character or rejecting her value as a family member. The aftermath of defending my wife's vacation plans has been swift and devastating to my family relationships. Within 2 weeks of the cabin incident, I had been essentially excommunicated from my extended family based on my mother's version of events, which portrayed her as a generous victim of my cruel and ungrateful behavior. My mother told everyone that she had surprised us with a generous offer to prepare meals during our vacation, only to be told by her own son that she was unwanted and unwelcome at the cabin. She emphasized her hurt feelings and generous intentions, while completely omitting the context of Sarah's planned restoration retreat and the disruption caused by her uninvited presence. My siblings were the first to contact me with expressions of disappointment and confusion about my treatment of our mother. They could not understand why I would humiliate someone who had only wanted to help and spend time with family members during our vacation. They said that my response to my mother's surprise visit revealed fundamental changes in my character and values that they found concerning and disappointing. They suggested that marriage had corrupted my understanding of family loyalty and appropriate gratitude toward parents. My aunts and uncles followed with similar messages expressing their shock and disappointment about my behavior toward my mother. They described her as heartbroken and confused about why her son would reject her generous efforts to contribute to our vacation experience. They reminded me of everything my mother had sacrificed for my well-being throughout my childhood, and expressed disbelief that I would repay her love and dedication by calling her unwanted and unwelcome during a family visit. Even my cousins, with whom I had maintained close relationships throughout our adult lives, sent messages expressing their disappointment in my treatment of our aunt and their concern about how marriage had apparently changed my priorities and values. The consistency of their responses made it clear that my mother had been very strategic in how she presented the situation to other family members. She had emphasized her generous intentions and hurt feelings while completely omitting any mention of Sarah's vacation plans, or the fact that she had invited herself without permission. Nobody seemed to understand that there was a difference between rejecting someone's character and value as a person and setting boundaries about uninvited visits that disrupted carefully planned restoration time. My attempts to explain the full context of the situation were dismissed as excuses and evidence that I was trying to justify obviously cruel and ungrateful behavior toward my mother. My family members were not interested in hearing about Sarah's work stress or her need for quiet restoration time. They could not understand that my mother's good intentions did not automatically make her presence welcome or her assistance appreciated. They believed that family members should always be grateful for surprise visits and generous efforts, regardless of timing or advance permission. The most painful aspect of this family crisis has been realizing that my relatives value compliance and gratitude over honest communication and boundary setting. They prefer family members who accept whatever treatment they receive, rather than people who speak directly about their needs and expectations. My defense of Sarah's vacation plans was characterized as disloyalty and gratitude, rather than reasonable boundary setting and partner protection. My family could not see any difference between attacking my mother's character and defending my wife's right to pursue her planned activities. Sarah has been devastated by the family conflict that resulted from my defense of her vacation needs. She feels guilty that her desire for restoration time created a situation where I had to choose between supporting her plans and maintaining peace with my mother. I've tried to reassure her that the conflict was inevitable once my mother decided to invite herself to our vacation without permission, and then expected entertainment and appreciation for assistance that nobody had requested. But Sarah worries that she will always be viewed as the selfish daughter-in-law who corrupted her husband's values and caused family division through her antisocial behavior and lack of gratitude toward generous in-laws. I have explained to Sarah that the problem was not her need for restoration time or her decision to maintain her vacation plans. The problem was my mother's inability to respect boundaries and her expectation that good intentions automatically justified uninvited visits and unrequested assistance. The cabin incident revealed fundamental differences between my understanding of healthy relationships and my family's expectations for compliance and gratitude, regardless of circumstances or personal needs. I believe that healthy relationships involve asking permission before visiting, respecting other people's plans and needs, and accepting that good intentions do not automatically make someone's presence welcome or their assistance appreciated. My family believes that good intentions justify surprise visits and that family members should always be grateful for generous efforts, regardless of whether those efforts were requested or welcome. These different philosophies about relationships and boundaries make ongoing family harmony impossible unless I am willing to sacrifice my wife's well-being and my own values to maintain peace with relatives who cannot understand the difference between boundary setting and character attacks. I have decided that protecting my marriage and supporting my wife's reasonable needs is more important than maintaining relationships with family members who interpret healthy boundary setting as disloyalty and ingratitude. The loss of these family relationships has been painful, but I realized that they were based on my willingness to prioritize other people's comfort over my own values and my wife's well-being. Relationships that require such sacrifices are not healthy or sustainable over time. Sarah and I have been able to plan future vacations and family time without worrying about uninvited guests or unrealistic expectations for entertainment and gratitude. We can focus on activities that restore and strengthen our relationship rather than managing other people's hurt feelings about our boundaries. I have also learned that defending my wife's reasonable needs and plans is not the same as attacking my family's character or rejecting their value as people. Setting boundaries about visits and expectations is necessary for healthy relationships, even when other people interpret those boundaries as personal attacks. The most important lesson from this experience has been understanding that loyalty to family does not require sacrificing my wife's well-being or accepting treatment that would be inappropriate in any other relationship context. My mother would not invite herself to a friend's vacation without permission and then expect entertainment and appreciation for unrequested assistance. The fact that she is family does not give her the right to ignore normal social boundaries and expectations. I hope that eventually my family will understand that healthy relationships require mutual respect and boundary setting rather than automatic compliance and gratitude, regardless of circumstances. But I am not waiting for their understanding to protect my marriage and support my wife's reasonable needs. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your partner's well-being? How do you handle situations where relatives expect gratitude for assistance that was not requested or welcome? What advice would you give to someone whose family interprets boundary setting as disloyalty and ingratitude? Share your experiences with family boundaries and partner protection in the comments below.